Hello everybody, welcome to Cake Doctor. Well, surgery's open for the first time. Welcome. I'm Ceri Griffiths and I'm one of the Cake Doctors here. I'm one of the experts that you'll have on the panel to help you with all those problems. So, just going to check that my Facebook Live is working on the iPad because I want to be able to interact with you immediately, well, with the 2-minute delay, you know what I mean. So I just want to make sure that I'm actually live enough that I can see what I'm doing with you. It looks like he's doing it, yep. Oh, we've got people already joining us. Hello and welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, as I said, this is Cake Doctor Live. Need to introduce a few people, need to say hello, need to explain what we're actually all about, because this is the first time you will have seen it. And this little guy here, this is little Ian the intelligent owl. He's going to be here to remind me what I'm supposed to be doing. Believe it or not, this little fella is actually the chief. So there's a little corps of doctors, but he's head surgeon. So if he keeps popping up, you know it's probably because I've gone off track or off piste. Anyway, a few things I wanted to say. Cake Doctor is about a community. We want to offer you a group of cake decorators and experts in their field who can actually help you. I mean, there's very few resources out there where you can actually ask an expert, and that was the nugget of why we wanted to do this in the first place. Now, we have a Facebook group, as you know, because you're a member. We'll be doing at least one Facebook Live per month. Where time allows, that will happen. Also, there is a blog page, and it's all one word, cakedoctor.blog, and if you go there, that's going to be a growing resource. At the moment we've got a few things there, but as we get requests from you, like you want conversion charts, or you want lengths of ribbon tables, or you want baking hints and tips, or cure my problems, or templates, as you request them, we will try and develop them and get them there. We want Cake Doctor to be the place where you go for help. Now, just want to name a few people who are on the panel at the moment. Now, we have a panel of doctors, or experts as you'd like to call us. It's one of those that we're going to change. I mean, as time goes on, some of us experts, because we run businesses as well, will be pulled away. We're going to end up having to take little periods away to come back after bigger projects. So you might find as the call for different experts in different fields come in, we're going to add names. We might even take names away. So obviously I said Ceri Griffiths, that's me. I'm here to do raw icing and confectionery. Confectionery, I mean things like sweets, candies, pastry, that sort of stuff is what I'm going to be handling predominantly. Next, we've got Chef Nicholas Lodge, who's based in Atlanta, Georgia, very well-known name. He's going to be dealing with sugar flowers or gum paste flowers and sugar paste or rolled fondant to our American friends. Again, he's a qualified pastry chef, vast experience, and it's good because we're all from different countries, so we have different views of different products and different ways to cure the problems for you. We have Julie Askew. Now, a lot of you may know that name. Julie's extremely experienced. Julie's an expert. She's going to be the one that you go to for judging and competition advice. Now, Julie cannot answer questions specific to a competition because those need to be answered by the panel or the organisers of that competition. But Julie can certainly give advice, reasons for things, what to look out for, things you may stumble at when you're doing competition pieces. And also, and Julie, I do apologise for this, Julie is an expert in this field and I can't say it. I want to say it's kanasashi. It's all about flowers, but what it is, it's an art form that is made from ribbons, but she's turned the ribbon art form into using sugar ribbon. Exquisite looking work, and when Julie gets a chance you're bound to see some fabulous work from her, so look out for that. We have Terry Pringlewood. Now Terry's based in California, I believe. Exquisite cookies, and we will, during the course of Facebooks and during this group, we will periodically post pictures for inspiration. As soon as you see Terry's work, you will know for definite why Terry's the cookie expert here. We have Lisa Specs, fellow Welsh person, go Wales. Lisa runs a wedding business. She's going to be your go-to girl for wedding cakes, advice on wedding venue, like favors, treats, stuff like that. She's going to be your go-to girl, so go Lisa go. And then last but by no means least is my dear friend Sheila Jones in Glasgow, and Sheila's going to be there for baking problems and business. And by business we mean the business of running a bakery business, cake decorating business. She has access to a very large group of influential people that she can dip into, but she's very, very knowledgeable, and her work again is exquisite. Now, we as cake doctors are going to be here to help you. If you get stuck, please just ask. Already since we launched on the 29th of last month, you will find we've got lots of subjects. We've already answered quite a few, and I will go through a few and double check them. We will definitely answer you, but don't expect an answer that quick. We will get to you when we can, but don't worry. An expert may not be able to answer the question, but there may be someone else in our little cakey community who's equally as qualified to give advice. I would say, though, as with any skill, there is no one correct way to do things. So if you hear different experts or different members of the group conflicting in what they're saying with each other, that's because we all have our different ways. Also, I did do a post, I think about a week ago. If you ask us a question on Facebook Live, please list which country you're in. The reason for that is products change from country to country. Climate, humidity, FDA approval, what's classed as edible versus non-edible. We've tried to cover all bases, but we want to give you the correct information that we can based on the country you're in. Also, if we cannot answer a question, and we know lots, but we don't know everything, we promise you we will do some research and get an answer to you. Okay? So thank you. Be patient with us, and we'll do the best we can. So let me just see who's logged on. Let's have a little look. Oh, there's that little Ian guy again. Faith. Hello, Faith. Sue. I don't know who Sue is. She's someone random. So, sorry. That giggling in the background may be a certain redhead that I know. Okay, Julie. Hello, Julie. Margaret Ellis. Oh, I've spun too fast. Margaret Gardner. Hi, Ian. See, you've got fans already, Ian. That's your problem. You're too cute. Sherry. Jill. Heidi. Oh, is that my sister? No, it's not. It's another Heidi. Liam. Hello, Liam. Now, Ian might have a twin. We're not quite sure, but there's Ian and Liam. So I might get that confused at some point, but I think Liam is the hidden secret weapon. But don't tell him that. So moving on with Carol. Carol, love you, Carol. I've done lots of work with Carol in the past. Nice to see you here. Doreen, Margaret. Good grief. It goes on and on. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Now, if you hear a little voice in the background, it's because I'm looking at you, talking to you, and hopefully doing some dems. But if I miss a very important question, you might hear a little voice going, Gary, there's a question. Okay, because I can't look there and look there at the same time. But we'll try and do it. If I don't get to a question you ask live, we will go through the feed afterwards and do it for you. So, right, where are we up to? Now, I think it's very important on Cake Doctor that every time I do a Facebook Live, you don't have me standing here lecturing you on something continually. I would like to be able to do you a small dem. Now, we didn't, because this is the first one, have a topic to do as a first dem. So I've actually chose a topic for the beginners, for the enthusiasts, just to give us a starting block. But please list things you'd like to see us do. Now, you've got me in front of you this month. You may have me more than once, more than twice. But if we can bring in other experts to show you things as well. I'm not set up for baking here, but we can certainly address baking issues, and I might even get Sheila down to help us out. Anything you're struggling with, let me know. And if I can do it here in front of you and cure the problem or show a way of helping, that's what we want to do. So, any questions so far? I don't see anything. How many have we got on here? I've lost track. I can't see. Me and technology don't work that well. So, right. We're doing all right. Okay, I'm seeing lots of different people from around the world, and that's lovely. But as I said, remember, different things work for different people. Now, the subject I chose is a subject I use a lot, actually. I'm going to show you some marbling techniques. Now, marbling has been around since cake decorating started. It's something I use really a lot in stuff. I'm very much a commercial based cake decorator. I'm looking for the wow factor quickly. because all of us are out there. If we're in business, cakes for cash, we need to make sure we give the wow, but as quickly as we can, because time is money. And I have found that using the marbling effect will give me that added element. So I'm going to show you a few things as we go along. Now, I'm going to be using sugar paste or fondant to our American friends. I'm not going to mention a brand. There are hundreds of brands out there. We all have our preferences. We all have our go-to brands. If I happen to mention a brand, that just happens to be a personal choice or what was available on the day. Okay, we're trying to make sure that we're reaching everybody with everything we say. Oh, wait, I've got a couple of things come in. Let's have a look. Right, struggling with sharp edges. We will try and cover sharp edges in one of the demonstrations. Sharp edges are very much an in vogue thing at the moment. I tend to still use buttercream and then put sugar paste or fondant on top and create my sharp edges. I use little smoothers to do it. You can use a couple of these sugar paste smoothers in tandem around the side of the cake. It just takes a bit of patience to do. I tend to use quite fresh fondant. If your fondant is too firm, sometimes it takes you a while to get there. If it's too soft and you press too hard, you could ruin the whole thing. I know a lot of people out there will actually coat their cake with ganache first, because the ganache will give them a firmer surface to work against. There are lots of YouTubes out there, although I'm sure we'll get round to showing you some anyway. I know Sheila Jones does quite a lot of sharp edge stuff, so look out for some advice from her. I know that the little secretary in the corner is merrily jotting things down as we speak, so don't be surprised if there isn't a dem from me on sharp edges imminently. What else did we get? Okay. I struggle making leaves. This is Elaine, by the way. I struggle making leaves on wires. They always fall off when I make them, so help with that will be great at some point. Okay, that's one that's definitely on the list to do. It could possibly be Nicholas Lodge who does it. We're going to try live streaming that at one point. I can do them as well. So what I'll do is, I know 2 or 3 different methods of getting wires onto wires into leaves. A lot of the problem is you need to make sure the wire is damp, not wet. Okay. Also, once you've inserted the wire into the vein down the back of the leaf, don't expect it to stick on its own. Where the wire comes out, make sure you give it a little tiny pinch at the base of the leaf, just to make sure it's fully secured to that piece of paste. Okay, as I said, we will address that one. That's an easy one, and that will actually probably in the same dem be covering petals on wires as well. Flowers, you either love them or hate them, but believe me, practice does make perfect. I wasn't ever very good at flowers, and then I put my head down and really slogged away at them, and now, believe me, they are now easy. It's just a bit of practice, but we'll give you as many hints and tips as we can. I know Nick probably isn't watching today, because I think the man's on vacation. So I'm sure Nick will jump in, and maybe Nick can do us a little video and put it on this group at some point, so you can see how he does it as well. We'll work on that one for you. Who else have we got? Patricia, I'm here but I don't see anything happening. I can assure you it is. I would probably say it might be an internet feed. It might be the speed of your internet. I'm not sure which country you're in. I've got a feeling you're my friend Patricia from America. I'm recognising the icon, the little gobo on top. So Patricia, it could be the internet connection. Okay. If not, don't forget, guys, you can watch this back at any point after the event. Nicola, Melanie, hello Melanie, nice to see you. Now that brings up another point. Don't forget, guys, this year Cake International at the NEC in November, it's their big birthday. I think Melanie's going to remind me in a minute. I think it's their 30th, but I could be lying. It could be their 25th. So I know they've got lots of things planned. It's going to be very, very special. So put it in your diary. Make sure you look it up and make sure you go. I'm sure Mel and the guys will be pleased to see you. I'm going to be there. Come and harass me. I don't mind at all. So Margaret Ellis, also upside down method for sharp edges. I think what Margaret is referring to, I know some people will use ganache plates, top and bottom, to get sharp edges. Other people will take, I believe it's silicone, they will spread their ganache on it, they'll turn the cake upside down on it and then run around it with a smoother, chill it, then take it off and peel out, and you get a really flat edge. And as long as you're working at one edge at a time, you will find you get a sharp edge. Again, we'll look into getting that sorted out and see if I can get a small video done somewhere, or we'll try it on one of our classes. I mean, we've got I'm not classes, one of our videos, we've got a microwave here. I'm sure I can pull off ganache on here and we'll see how that goes for you. So yes, we're making a note of that one, Margaret. Thank you. Hello, Noreen, nice to see you. Love making flowers, Margaret, and you make beautiful flowers. Okay, can I put a fondant covered cake in the fridge overnight? Now, this actually came up in the Cake Doctor posts earlier last week, I believe it was. You can put a fondanted cake into a fridge, but you do need to be aware of a few things. When you see on the TV people like bakers and confectioners and cake decorators putting fondanted cakes into their cool store, that's usually a dry room where the moisture has been taken out, and it's a cool room. It's not your regular refrigerator. Now, refrigerators have a lot of moisture in them, so if you really want to put your cake into a fridge overnight and it's covered in fondant, if you take it out the next day, it could become really sticky. So I would say put it in a cake box, seal the cake box in plastic, maybe put it into a big plastic bag, seal the bag and put it in the fridge overnight. When you take it out the next day, open up the box, do not touch the cake. Just let it come up to room temperature and then it should be fine. If you've put it in there without the box or without the bag, it's going to attract the moisture to that surface of the fondant sugar paste. It's going to become shiny and sticky. What you need to do then is put it on the countertop and let it come up to room temperature. It will dry out, but do not touch it. Another thing is that if there's colours on there, they could run. The moment you touch it, it's going to be sticky. If you touch it, if you leave it in there too long, you may even get a shine on it. So yeah, try and keep it in an airtight container if you put it in the fridge. But it's one of those things that I don't normally do. But I do know you can do it. Just be aware that it's a bit hit and miss. Maybe try it with a slice of cake in the future and see how much moisture your fridge contains so that it doesn't affect your cake. So, love the marbling technique. Well, Noreen will be doing it in a minute, love. So, love watching. Right, I think, oh, Louise. Hello, Louise. So, I think that's answered a few of them. There were questions that came out this week, and it's worth scrolling back through all of the questions on the Facebook group because there were some really interesting questions. Even I went, I don't know that. What the heck did you do there? And as I said, you will find various answers. Like, for example, there was a question this week, can I freeze macarons? Yes, you can freeze macarons. I do know there's a supermarket or a food place here in Britain who actually sells macarons from the freezer, but you do have to make sure they're in an airtight container. There were quite a few people who freeze their macarons on the post giving their comments. All of them are valid. Just go back through them. I periodically sit down and read them because even though we're called experts, we're all on a learning curve. We can't know everything. So that was a good one. So anyway, let's move on to the first of the dems. So I'm going to use sugar paste or rolled fondant if you're in America. No particular brand. Use whichever brand you're most comfortable with. There are lots of advertisement going, this is the best, this is the best, this is the best. These hands are your best. If you can work with the fondant, you like the taste of it, you like the smell of it, you like the flavour of it, and you can handle it, that is your favourite fondant. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, sorry about the crinkling, little Ian keeps telling me I shouldn't talk in open plastic bags, and well, I just forgot that. So, crinkle, crinkle, now talk. So I'm going to show you how I actually achieve a water look, because sometimes if I'm doing a cake and I've just got one or two sea themes to go on it. So say I've got a sailboat, or I've got a beach hut, or someone wants a bathing beauty and they want a beach ball floating on the ocean. How do I make it look something more than just a plain covered cake? So I tend to take different coloured pastes. Now I've got 2 shades of blue and 1 shade of green here. It will depend on what colours, let's move those in, what colours you actually want your sea to be or your ocean to be as to what colours you mix in. So I tend to think, right, how does a wave form? So my white is the crest of the wave, then it's lighter. I usually put green, and then I have the darker colour at the bottom. So I'm going to just roll these out to rough sausages. Now, there are very many different ways to do marbling techniques. This just happens to be the way I do them. Okay, so by all means, this isn't the only way. This is just what works for me. So I'm just lining them up next to each other, because what I want when I finish this is I want something that if I cover a cake in one piece, it'll give me almost a wave effect. So I'm pinching them together. I'm going to break that in half. So I've got a bit of a layer. I scrunch it together. Now if I turn that over, you can see I've got all the stratifications of the paste colours. Stratifications, good word, not easy to say on TV. So I'm going to roll it into a sausage. Now once I've got it to a certain width, I want to look at it, see I've not lost anything. I seem to have lost my green, so I'm just going to open this up a bit. I'm going to tear that, turn it round. Now, what I've done is I've added another layer. I always get really hot and sticky hands, bit of cornstarch always helps. Bit more rolling, take my knife. Now what I'm doing is I'm building up these colours. Now see here, I've got a bit of green showing through. If I just turn it inside out, I'll have more of the green. Now, you'll see I'm not scrunching because I want to keep those lines. So, okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to squish it together a bit, because let's pretend we're actually doing a round or a square cake. Let's take the big old rolling pin. This is Big Martha, my big rolling pin. So I'm going to give it a bit of a roll. Now, I always put white into it because I want to keep it quite light. Let's put a bit more cornstarch down. Now, I'm using cornstarch to roll out in the studio. If I was rolling out to cover a cake, I would never use cornstarch, because if you trap a layer of cornstarch between your cake, so we've got cake, we've got buttercream ganache, whatever you're covering it with, then you've got a layer of cornstarch or corn flour, and then you put sugar paste or fondant on, this could ferment. So when you roll out to entrap something in there, it needs to be icing sugar or white vegetable fat that you roll out with. Okay, so just be careful. Some people do use cornstarch, and sometimes you'll get the side of a cake, it blows, so it tends to ferment and you get a bulge and it'll burst. I can guarantee you'll have mold in there, and that's because you've used cornstarch. So please be careful. If it's not a piece that's being trapped in, then that's fine. So just keep on rolling. Now, as if by magic, I don't know why this happens, whenever I do a bit of marbling, I always find the underneath is always more impressive than the top. Don't know why that works. That's just the way it is. So keep rolling. Now, as you can see, I now have some really nice colours running through that. So if I turn that over, I have another look here. This to me is a bit too up and down, but another thing I can do is once it's rolled out, if I rub it with my finger, I can actually change where some of these curves are. Once I've finished doing it, I normally come in with a smoother and I smooth it all out. I would then pick this up, lay that over my cake, and that would then give me what I was looking for. This would give me a real subtle background. So let's fold that up a second, put that by, and show you one that I did earlier. So as you can see, there you go. You can see that there. That's a really subtle coloration. This is what I would want if I was doing something like a sailboat or an ocean scene. And don't forget, guys, you've got a cake board. So you may have a sand-coloured cake with a beach hut and a beach ball and a sailing boat and a little model of a child sitting on a blanket eating an ice cream. But you know, if you did the board like this, that just takes the whole theme down. So a quick technique, don't forget, I could have cut out cupcake tops from this and kept those, and then that would have carried the theme through. I could have even covered the tops of cookies with it. So lots of different uses for that. So we'll come back to our piece of coloured paste later, because you will always have offcuts, and I want to show you a really sneaky trick to using those up. If you don't reuse them in something else, it's a really good way to do it. So the second one I'm going to do, see Ian? Oh, he's not even there anymore. I thought he was going to tell me off for rattling and talking, which I'm doing again, but he disappeared. So now one of the things I really love doing with marbling effect is stone effects. Now you can get some stunning looking wedding cakes done in stone effects. After I've done this, we'll flash up a cake that I did with them, and you'll love it. Now I tend to only use 3 colours when I do stone effect. Okay. Predominant colour for me, stone, is actually grey. I use white because it'll blend. I use black to put the veins within it. Depends on what stone you're doing. Obviously, if you're doing like a rose marble, you could add a pinker element to it. Depends on what you're looking for, granite, slate. It's always a good idea. Don't presume you know what the stone looks like. Go onto an internet search. Put in the title of the stone you want, just hit images, just to give you something to work from. And that's a hint also for the flower makers out there. When I was learning to make roses, I thought I knew what a rose looked like until I had a rose in front of me and followed it. If you have any chance to make a flower, if you've got a chance to have the real one in front of you, you will be amazed at how many little twists and turns you don't know about in a real flower. Good tip, lovely to use that one. So I'm using my lightest colour first. Now I'm going to cut this into sections because I want this to be a little more complex than I did before. Now I haven't measured these, okay? I've just taken chunks of them. I'm probably not going to use all of my white because I don't want white as a dominant colour, and I'm not going to use all of my grey, but I'm going to use three little pieces of it. So again, I'm going to put grey in, maybe a bit of black in between. Now you'll see I'm not really doing the sausage thing. I'm just squeezing these bits out to give me bits of colour because the predominant colour is grey. I don't need it even. When you look at a rock face, you'll see that there's pieces all over the place on it. And I'm going to enhance it a little further when I'm finished anyway. So I'm just building up. This is quite quick. When you're doing a bigger cake, obviously you just use bigger masses of this colour. So now, looks like a mess. Turn it over. You can see that I've got all nice straight lines through this. I scrunch it together. Don't be tending to do this. I'm scrunching it and then I start to roll it. Now, be careful when you're doing anything, when you're rolling out a piece of marbled paste. You need to decide what you're using it for, because if you start twisting this, you're going to change where the veining is. If you start just doing stuff like this, you will alter the lines. So be cautious of what you're doing. So I want the lines to be relatively straight. So just chop it down a bit. So bring it together one more time. A little bit cornstarch in my hands because, again, I'm sticky-handed. Right, roll it a bit. Now, I want just a modicum of interest in this, so I'm going to give it just a bit of a roll, and I'm going to do what I call a Z fold. So I've got it like that. Now, for me, that's pretty much ready to go. Now, I'm doing a small amount here. You would be doing a bigger amount because you are intended to cover an entire cake. So, coming in, roll it again. Now, as I said, miracle of TV, for some reason, the back always looks more interesting than the front. Okay, just be aware, don't assume the bit you're looking at is the best version. Always turn it over and have a look. Come in here. I hope my rolling pin isn't echoing down the internet for you. So, right, oh, that's stuck to my ball. So I've got my piece here. Let's just tidy this up a bit so I can work on it. So, now, if you're using this effect to cover a round cake, it's relatively easy. If you're using this effect to cover a square cake, just be aware when you manipulate the corners, you may end up distorting the way the rock looks. So just be careful. I always start by smoothing the front of my cake first, then I do the sides, and then I work on the back glass, because if there's anything that looks weird, I don't want it to be at the front, unless I'm doing a spray of flowers and I can cover it like that. So here you go. So this is my basic rock. What I would do then is I'm just going to take a little bit of silver dust colour, and the dust colour is non-toxic and it's food safe. So always read the labels on dust colours. Don't be fooled that if it says non-toxic, it doesn't always mean it's food safe. So do read your labels. Across the planet there are different variations, different manufacturers. Just be careful, you don't want to fall foul of that. So I'm just going to take a little paintbrush, Rob.
Can I just mention that you're a little bit high in your screen? Can you put your things down?
Oh, I think I can do that, yes. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Oh, shit. You know, the director in the corner's harassing me now. So, right, so what I've done is I've just got a little bit of liquid silver here. Now I can see where the veins on this are. So if I come through and accent some of those veins, not sure how much is going to show up on this screen, but I've done one earlier. Total Blue Peter moment there. So, but tend to follow the veins that you've got in your paste. Don't go randomly making up streaks. It won't make sense when you look at it from a distance. So let's put that to one side because I know I'm going to knock that one over later. Let's see if I can get it to shine as I lift it up. So as you can see there, that just adds that elegant opulence to it. Before it was just a flat bit of stone. Now I've got silver running through it. I could do gold. Now to show you the one I prepared earlier, magic moment. That can go in the bin. So I've made this one a bit more dramatic for the screen. So there you can see I've gone ahead and I've put that in really dramatically, and I used quite a bit of black in this. Now the reason I wanted to share this as one of my favourite techniques is last year I was quite lucky and quite honoured actually by American Cake Decorating. They asked me to make a cake to celebrate their 25th anniversary. So you will see in a moment, we're going to pop in a picture of the cake. There you go. Now as you can see, is it that? Oh, I pointed the right way. As you can see on there, that's exactly the same method as I've just shown you. I covered the square cake, and if you look at that cake closely, there's not really a lot of work on that cake, but it's elegant and it's dramatic. All I did, cover the cake, did a spray of gardenias on top, made a little plaque. I actually got some isomalt, made some isomalt crystals, painted them silver, put a 25 on it. It was no time at all to do the thing. The hardest thing to do probably was the gardenias, which took me about 2 days. But the impact of that cake and all of the impact, the wow, is actually on the canvas of the cake, which is done with a marbling effect. So it's very, very useful. If I wanted to take that to a bigger event, as I said, I could go in, I could make square cookies, I could cut out the squares of this stone effect, put them on the cookies, and then I have got cookie favours in theme. I could do the tops of cupcakes, I could do mini cakes. So it's a very quick commercial finish, but it's a really good one to do. Let's put that down and have a quick look at comments and see if I've ignored anyone. Right, there's going to be a really ugly screeching noise. Cover your ears. Haha, that put everybody's teeth on edge, didn't it? So I do need to clean the board a bit. Okay, let's have a little look, see who else is here. Stunning cake, thank you. I loved it myself. Fantastic. Wow, that looks amazing. Lovely, brilliant, fabulous cake. Could I use that method on beach pebbles? Susan, hold that thought. We're going there in a minute. So, what else we got going on here? Wow, Beaver. Thank you so much for the tip on flowers. Guys, this is what Cake Doctor is about. It's about sharing knowledge. I've been accused in the past by people of oversharing. My answer is I learnt my skills from somewhere, and so did they. If we do not share skills, those skills cannot be developed and taken to the next stage. There's a whole raft of the next generation coming up behind us who need to learn from someone, and we're the ambassadors for our art. And it's important that we share everything we know so that it can grow and develop. When I remember what we were doing as cake decorating when I went through Bakery and Confectionery College, if I look at pictures of that to what we do now, it's mind-blowing. Cake artistry is truly that. It is art, and we are the artists, and we're only going to grow if we help each other. So please share knowledge and help each other as we go away. Right, off my soapbox now. Okay, so what's the other one? Now, I get lots of requests for this one. It's wood grain. Now, I'll put that bit of paste there. Yes, I know, little Ian, I'm rattling bags and talking at the same time. Now, wood grain is done in very, very many ways, okay? Lots and lots of different ways. There's some people out there who do it. They will spend hours doing one piece of wood grain, and it looks incredible. But as a commercial decorator, I need to be quicker. So I've got 4 basic colours in front of me. I've got a pale yellow, I've got a dark brown, I've got a lighter brown, I've got sort of an apricot, apricot orangey sort of colour, but what I want to do is I need to make up wood veins. So we're all familiar with that, and it's all just sausages of paste. But when it comes to doing a flooring, or say I'm covering a board and I want it to look like wood panelling, that's when I change tack a little bit, and I'm just going to show you what I do. I do have one prepared earlier, obviously, because I want to make sure we spend more time answering questions and talking than we do just getting on with this. So, again, I tend to put lights next to dark, just so that I've got a variation all the way through this. Stick the oranges at the top. Now, again, I scrunch, I don't squeeze. I'm scrunching it together. Bring in Mr. Knife. Oh, it's a palette knife. Where's the knife gone? I tend to this time make sure I piece the pieces together, because what I'm trying to do is that side. That's where the magic is going to happen when I start rolling this. So, one more of those. So, now that I've got it there, I'm going to squish it so it becomes one amount. And now I'm going to roll it up lengthwise. And what I've done is I've now made a log with all of the veins on the outside. A bit more of a roll. Get it rolling well. Now if it starts coming apart, don't worry about that, because you put all different surfaces together. I'm now going to cut again. The reason I don't bend it around on itself is because that will cause a loop within the veining. Nice effect, but not what I'm looking for. So again, vein together. Squish it and give it another roll. And what I'm trying to do, it's like when you do candy canes, you're actually rolling to thin those bands of colour down. So if anyone out there goes, oh, how do they make Brighton rock? I can tell you now, when they make the first stick of rock, it's a big round disc with big letters, and then they roll it and they roll it and they roll it. It gets thinner and thinner until you get that word, say Brighton, written around the inside. Fascinating. You'll be able to see a video of it being done. So a little bit more, keep that going. So again, you would be working bigger than me. I'm only working on a small portion here. As you can see now, the veining is coming really, really fine. I want it to be fine. As far as colours go, again, it'll depend on what your techniques for doing it is. I try to do it and it's finished. Lots of people will actually do wood grain and then they'll airbrush it, or they'll dust it, or they'll paint it, and then they'll varnish it. So it depends on how much you want to do. So I'm almost there. Right, I think that's pretty much what I'm looking for. So I'm going to squish it together just so that it's one piece. Knife out the way. A little bit of cornstarch. Let's roll this out. As you can see, I'm getting some really interesting effects here. Again, turn it over. Always check the back, because I always find for some reason the back's better than the front. Now, at this stage, a lot of people would just put this directly onto their cake board, make a few grooves in it, and then call it wood planking. For me, that's not the way I do it. I do it slightly different, so I'm sticking here. I drove through a snowstorm and a blizzard this morning, people. It's humid and wet here. So, right, okay. Once I've got this, we can see the way the grain rolls. So I'm going to turn this way to do this effect. Now, my favourite bit of kit is a pizza wheel. I tend to use a pizza wheel more than any knife I've ever used. So I'm just going to top and tail this. And then I'm going to take the edges down so I've got clean edges. Now, depending on the project you're doing, if you're trying to do something quite rustic, you can just ad-lib this. If you're doing something that's, say, supposed to be the dance floor for maybe you've made models and they're a tango couple and they're stood on this polished dance floor, you need it to be more uniform. So, okay, just be aware those are things you need to think of. You could use a ruler for this. I'm not using a ruler for this because I'm just demming this. So I'm actually going to cut myself planks. Because if I'm making anything, I always try to think, how does it look in real life? In real life, if I had planked flooring, the veining wouldn't follow through. It would be individual planks. So I'm just going to do a bit of this right in front of us, and then I'll pull in the prepared one. So I'll take one plank, and then I'll take other pieces and build them either side. Another bit. I come in a bit. So what I'm doing is I'm actually doing pieces that don't match up with each other, because I don't want them to match up with each other. In real life, planks don't match up, unless you've got a very, very clever joiner. So as you can see, so I would build up a floor like this. Each time I'm doing it, I bring a ruler in to make sure it's all straight. So this would be the start of my floor. So I'd be laying that onto a flat surface. You can do it on a cake, but usually a floor would either be flat on the top or flat on the board. You wouldn't really have it going around the corners. You could have it as side panels, say you were doing a box. My next thing to do is I take some sort of modelling tool. I tend to use a Dresden tool. Dresden tool, this is one used for veining by flower people, and I tend to put a few odd veins into it just to add another dimension to it. Now I'm not following any lines, I'm just putting these indentations in just to catch the eye a little bit. And then one of the last things I do is I use the end of this and I actually just poke holes in. You know what, floorboards don't stick down by themselves, they need nails. So I tend to always honour that by putting a few nail holes at the end of each of the planks. Now, once that's done, I could come in if I really wanted to, and I could use dust colours and I could darken this up. I could airbrush some of the different contours within it. The last thing I'd probably do is you can get an edible glaze, or you can get what's called a dipping solution, which is confectioner's glaze and maybe can't remember what sort of alcohol it is. It's not IPA, you're not supposed to IPA anymore. It's a diluted confectioner's glaze, and then I would brush that onto the surface just to give it a bit of a polished effect. So what I would then end up with is a floorboard. So as you can see, the only thing I've done differently here is I've gone in here and I've just dusted a bit of brown into the surfaces just to give me a bit more interest, but this is the quickest way I know of making a realistic floor. Now, there are, as I said, there are people out there who spend hours doing beautiful woodwork, but if I'm being commercial, this is how I do it. Now, if this was being made, I could then just put a little cake on here with a little bit of an embellishment. Maybe it's for your dad's birthday. So I've made this a 12-inch. I can put a little hammer and some nails on there, a pot of paint, maybe some tools. It's one of those things. Don't forget the board. The board's a really important part of your overall design. So let's shift all that to one side. Let's see if there's any questions before I move on to the next bit. How are we doing here? Oh, what's that one? Oh, I keep touching stuff. Great tip for corn flour. Yes, do be aware of corn flour. Corn flour is to keep your hands cool. Use it in a mould, but try not to trap it between two surfaces. I use it a lot for when I do flour making too. I do know some people, however, when they have a corn flour pouch, they'll mix 50% corn flour with 50% icing sugar because they like the softness of the icing sugar, but they like the drying effect and the smoothing effect of the corn flour or cornstarch. So again, there are different ways of doing it. Just be aware of the mildew thing. Covered cake boards make a cake look professional. Yes, and I know this actually topic of finishing cake board has actually been laboured a lot, and I know a lot of people have got slightly annoyed. They're going, don't tell me off about the cake board. To be honest with you, the cake board is part of your whole image. If you're going to spend hours doing a beautiful cake, even if the cake board is just covered in plain fondant or sugar base, that's enough to complement your design. And also, one of the pet peeves I have when I'm judging internationally is if you've entered a cake into a competition, please dress the edge of the cake board with a ribbon. As you can see here on this one, I put ribbon around the edge of my board. There's nothing worse to me than seeing the silver edge or the gold edge of a board unless it's part of the overall design. But finish it off. It's just that tiny little touch which makes a difference. So let's have a little go. Just for flowers. I would say hello to everyone, but to be honest with you, there's now so many of you, I could spend another hour naming you, so I'm not going to go down that one. So, but know you're loved, everybody. We love you. Oh, Gareth. Hi, Gareth. Hello. Well, oh, God, I'm going to get this wrong, aren't I? Borada Shamai. I think that's what I said. If I've insulted you, Gareth, sorry. My Welsh is not great. So, right. Okay, let's move on to another few things then. Okay, now I did say about different effects with these. Obviously, when you've done your paste and you've cut the excess off, you've got spare bits of paste. Don't scrunch them together. Try and keep them flat. Put them under a piece of plastic, saran wrap, plastic wrap, just because you never know when you may need to carry that theme through somewhere else on the cake. However, when you have the scraps all left over, so let's go back to our stone, the bundle of stone stuff we had, okay? Now, I learnt this from a very close friend of mine, James Rosell, in America. James is renowned for his sugar flowers. Fabulous work, James. And I remember on one of his classes, he was teaching orchids and he had bamboo and he had these river rocks with him, or river stones. They were beautiful, and it's been one of my go-to things to do now when I have offcuts of paste. There's nothing worse than having those little bits of paste. I'm talking gum paste, modelling paste, pastelage, sugar paste, fondant. I've even done this with modelling chocolate, and what it means is I've made pieces that I can use later. Now I always make sure I make a note of how long my paste's shelf life is. I don't randomly keep stuff for years, but it's good to have a backup for things. So let's just use the white and the darker colour because it'll show better on screen. So what we do is we get both pastes to be a little bit soft. I've probably got too much there. Let's take that off there and that off there. So what James does is he kneads them together and just gives them a few twists, and then he'll roll them into a ball. Once you roll them into a ball, look at the ball and find out which is the aesthetically beautiful side of it. I need to put some cornstarch in my hand, sorry. And then squash it gently with your hand and then polish it off, and you have a river rock. Now these little river rocks can actually be saved to one side, dried, and then keep them in a dust-free, damp-free box. They're perfect little accent pieces. I remember I did a cake that was actually succulents, and I used these around the base of the succulents just to add interest. I've actually used them again. I've used them for a water lily cake where I had a couple of them with a dragonfly hanging over the top, and I know that when James did his exotic orchids class, he had them nestled in amongst the bamboo and they were lovely. Now don't forget, it doesn't just have to be round, so let's just destroy my pebble. If I then roll it into a sausage, I have yet another pebble. And you can really build these things up. Now, if you're using in a water, say you're doing a gelatin river or you're doing a watery scene, you can always spray these with an edible glaze or paint them with an edible glaze, and they'll have that wet look about them. But just to show you other variations, let's take these out here. These are just some of the ones I've had just from the spare bits I've done, and how realistic do they look? And they're sugar, so it's not like I'm sticking something on a cake that's going to be inedible. It's just really, really nice to have something interesting on the cake, just to give it that contemporary twist, just to give it a little bit of a look. So let me just move on, see if there's any more questions coming in. So I'm sure we've got loads in there. So I'll go on to one thing other. James Rosell is brilliant. Yes, James Rosell is brilliant. Mind, if James is listening, I don't like you. See you later, James. So let's go back through here. Noreen, Elaine, Margaret, Gareth, Sam. There's lots of you there. Don't forget, this is actually going to be a monthly event. We're going to try and make it every second Tuesday in the month. But make sure you keep checking back to the website, because we will post when they are. But there's going to be times when we're probably pulled away to do bigger projects, but there will definitely be one a month. I just don't know who's going to be doing it, when's going to be doing it. Probably going to be me a lot, but then, you know what, I think you put up with me for a while. So, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, Susan, that should answer your question about could this method be used for beach pebbles? Yes, it could. You could actually do a coloured version of that, maybe roll them in cornstarch or corn flour, and they might come out as seed glass. But I must admit, when I do seed glass, I tend to use boiled sugar, and I put the boiled sugar, make it into the shapes, and then I roll that in cornstarch to give it that frosted look. So that's another way of using it as well. So now, you can use marbled paste in moulds as well. Now, if I had a batch of marbled paste and I didn't want to do river rocks, I would look around any moulds that I've got to find out which mould would lend itself to having marbling. Like if you've got something that's maybe a stone urn, or there's a column, or you've got a cherub, or you've got something that's maybe a cameo. All of those things would look quite good with a marbled background. Or you could just cut out plaques, and the plaques could be used later on because you've got the marbling. So don't think it's wasted. A very good example of using marbling. Let me do this with the overhead one, little Ian. Let me just get it into position and towards me and up. Okay, on this cake, I've actually used marbling on the seashells. Okay, there you go. Now this cake here, tomorrow I'm filming. So tomorrow I'll be filming this cake, and we're going to have a tutorial in the future just showing you how to use some basic skills to make this wow cake. So you'll see this again, so look out for that one. We'll post it when it's done. So, right. Do I have any more questions flooding in? Oh, I've gone all the way to the top. Sorry, press the wrong button. Okay, now a couple of things I do need to remind you. Don't forget, Cake Doctor is not just a Facebook page. There is a newsletter, so you can go onto the site and actually sign up for the newsletter. That way you'll have all of the information coming at you. Also remember, if you do Cake Doctor, which is one word, .blog, that will take you through to a little bit of resume for each of the Cake Doctors, so you know who we are, what we look like. Scary. Look like. There's also already, I think there's some conversion charts on there. There's some templates from me about how to divide cakes up. I know we've got other things coming in. To be honest with you, we had a struggle trying to get all of the information written and double checked before we posted it. So keep checking back there. If you do think of things you really would like as a go-to resource, please let us know, and we will do our best between us to make sure it's put on there. Also, don't forget that if you don't tell me what you want demonstrated, I'm standing here with little Ian doing nothing. So let me know. We'll play around. We'll get stuff going. I'm sure as this becomes more and more, we can theme it. We can look towards, maybe you've got Halloween themes coming up and it's August and you want to look at Halloween themes. Just let us know. We'll see what we can do. We will try and use as many things that are readily available as possible for you and answer all your questions. What else have we got in here? That's probably about that there. Remember, and also another thing that's very important for me to say here, Cake Doctor is for everyone. It's from the lady next door that bakes cupcakes for a cancer research tea party once a year, all the way up to a professional pastry chef who's just looking for little ideas. There's no intimidation here. Don't be embarrassed to ask. Everyone on the site learnt the skills somewhere. All of us had a first time. I remember the first time I walked into my cake decorating class in college, I knew nothing. Granted, I spent 3 years learning it and then went into industry to learn more. All of us have a starting block, okay? Don't be afraid to ask. As cake decorators, we tend to work very much on our own at home, in our own kitchens. We tend to go onto video channels or we go onto video learning sites to learn stuff. But a lot of the time that's a bit lacking because you can't actually ask the question. You've gone through the whole video trying to find the answer and you don't know where to get it. Ask us. We will help you. I promise you. We will do the best we can to give you an educated answer and probably many answers which will give you the best way to do it yourself. Okay, the thing I do ask though is, please, please, please tell us which country you're from. When we're out and about at shows, not as Cake Doctors as a group, but when you see us at shows, come up and say hi. We'd really like to put faces to names, okay? I know that I'm in Austin week after next. I know Nicholas Lodge is also there. We'll be at the NEC. We'll be everywhere. Just come and say hi. Let us know. We're quite happy to see your cakes. In fact, I'm excited to see your cakes. So if you do ask us a question and you go, oh, that did work, please post the picture after to let us know. One more thing, about 45 minutes ago there was a lady, I can't remember your name, sorry, who asked about Madeira cakes. Apparently she's trying to bake an 8-inch round Madeira cake and it's taking more than 3 hours and it's still not baking. I don't think it's probably a problem with the recipe. I think there's a couple of things you might be doing. In the post, and I may be speaking out of turn because I know Sheila's not available tonight for me to contact. In the post you do say It's in the oven for 3 hours. You wrap it round with a cake band and you put foil over the top. Well, you've really insulated that cake. I would say don't put the foil on the top. You might not even want to put the cake bands around the outside, because what you're doing is you're preventing the heat getting to the Madeira cake. Now, Madeira is a denser cake. It will take slightly longer to bake. It will be ever so slightly dry around the outside edges and the top edge, top surface when it's baked. You will find a lot of people bake Madeira cake when they're doing sponges, when they're doing cakes they're going to stack or they're going to carve. But what they do then is once they've cut it into slices, they'll use a sugar syrup to actually put a bit of moisture back into it. Try, if you can, experimenting and bake one without all the protection on it, okay? Also, are you baking on the middle of the oven or are you baking on the top shelf? I would personally bake it in the middle of the oven, because if you put it on the top shelf, you're going to find the top surface is burning. The middle of the oven will give you a real good circulation. If you want to prevent the heat directly hitting the top of the cake, if you've got 2 shelves in your oven and your Madeira cake is here, put a baking tray on the shelf above. What that will do, it'll stop the heat directly going on. It'll mean it'll circulate around the cake. Try that. That might help. If it doesn't, I know Sheila will be online tomorrow and I'm sure she'll pick it up because I tagged her in on the post, so she'll come back. She may have another solution for you. Don't know whether you're in America, whether you're abroad, whether you're in Britain. There are things called baking cores. They're like a little metal disc with a metal piece that sticks up. Some people put those into the cake pan in the center before they put the cake batter in, and what that does is it transfers the heat up through the middle of the cake. That sometimes will help it bake more evenly and it'll stop sinking in the middle. So lots of things there, and as I said, we will get and answer questions as we can. Right, we seem to have absolute overload with people following us. Do you know how much that warms our heart? This is the first one we've done. When we had the idea for Cake Doctors, we thought, oh, is this going to work? Is it not? Do you know within about 3 days we had 1,800 people joining the group, and all of you were celebrating, going, oh, this is just what I look for. Thank you so much. We look forward to sharing information with you. One more time, don't forget, your experts are me for Raw Icing Confectionery. Chef Nicholas Lodge is gum paste flowers, sugar flowers, and sugar paste and rolled fondant. You've got Julie Askew for judging competitions and Kansashi flowers. Julie, you've got to let me know how to say that, look, girl. Terry Pringlewood for decorated cookies. Lisa Speck for wedding cakes. Sheila Jones for bakery and business. So, lots of people there, but help each other as well, guys. Remember, criticism is good, but only if it's constructive. Cake is full of sugar, so let's keep it sweet, shall we? So it's thank you from me. It's thank you from the team at Cake Doctors. Looking forward to next month. I'm looking forward to you telling me what I'm going to be doing here. So have fun, guys. From me and little Ian and the hidden Liam, we'll see you next month. Take care, guys. Bye now.